Welcome to If I Did It, a show where we analyze and solve PR kerfuffles from the world of MMA and beyond. Joining us as always is Kid Nate of Bloody Elbow and Eugene S. Robinson from Aussie.com and author of Fight Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Ass Kicking, but were afraid you'd get your ass kicked for asking. And my name is Alexi Old.
Yeah. You stumbled there, buddy. You stumbled.
I stumbled and bumbled, but you know what?
He was reading off the cue card, and he still stumbled.
You know, Kid Nate raised the bar on the care don't care by his stealthy reading recitation of the
I wasn't reading. No, steel trap, buddy.
Yeah, I want you to maintain full eye contact. It's like good sex. Eye contact. Eye contact.
The author of.
Creepy.
Okay, so Eugene.
Yeah, it's creepy. Some woman once told me, "Don't be staring in my eyes." Yes, sir.
So, can you let us know why people should listen to the advice that you're giving, Eugene?
Outside of the fact, lifelong journalist, marketing and PR for CFY Records, as well as what you claimed at the top of the hour, the author of the book, deputy editor, editor-in-chief multiple times, and a man who's been in many a pinch from which he's had to extricate himself through the clever use of talk. That is my credential.
He didn't even mention Intel and Apple, which are his best, and House, which are his best credentials.
Apple, Adobe, Intel, Nikon, Ziff Davis, Future Publishing. I've been at all the places, and separated from all the places.
More importantly, which gives you credibility and legitimacy as a straight shooter. Hey, so what about you, Kid Nate? Why should people listen to you?
Political consultant with 15 years of experience in the corporate and political public affairs world. Clients include Senator John Kerry, Senator Mark Warner, Governor Jack Markell of Delaware, who just did a really cool thing by pardoning an ex-slave who was a hero of the Underground Railroad some 100-something years after he died, and Firestone, AT&T, Southwest Airlines, yada, yada, yada.
Oh, why don't you mention the real good ones like Kerr McGee and Monsanto and?
I don't believe I ever did anything with Kerr McGee, but Monsanto, yeah.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So, you know, if I had done Kerr McGee, I'd brag about it, but I haven't.
Also, I should make the claim that the title of this show, If I Did It, has a personal tie-in for me because that was the name of the book ushered into existence by Judith Reagan, who also signed the Fight book to HarperCollins. She signed the book If I Did It with O.J. Simpson. There was some pushback, and then she took a 100-foot cliff dive into total inadvisability by saying that she was being chased by a Jewish cabal, thus ending her relationship with HarperCollins. And my first call to her afterward was answered by one of the deputies. And I said, yes, it's terrible. It's all terrible, but what's going to happen to the Fight book? And they go, your Fight book's okay. So there you go.
That's a close one. So I was going to ask which was more disappointing for her, If I Did It or the Fight book, but.
No. Yeah, I've not read If I Did It since it ruined. I mean, Judith was oppression.
Well, they had to pull that, didn't they?
Yeah, they pulled it.
Yeah.
There were some copies that were leaked. I think that's what happened. So, you know, almost like the Fight book in terms of how rare it is to get a hardcover copy.
Well, and the Fight book was also banned in the UK.
Oh, there we go. More credibility. Banning gives you credibility. So my name is Alexi Old. I'm an attorney. Individuals, corporations, both for-profit and non-profit, with their legal business needs, also walking and talking through issues. Well, then call me after the show. I don't have the hawk wings like Nate's boy in Texas.
Brian White, the Texas lawyer. Brian Wilson, sorry, the Texas hawk of justice.
Yeah. So, enough for free publicity for him. So, Kid Nate, you're the UFC. UFC Fight Night Dublin headliner Joseph Duffy gets concussed in sparring last Saturday and pulls out of his bout with Dustin Poirier. Poirier declines a fight with Norman Park, who offered to, quote, step up, unquote. What do you do?
Well, if they're true to their form, they'll bury Dustin Poirier as deep as they can. They've already leaked the bit about Park willing to take the fight and him not. I think the difference between this and, say, UFC 151, when John Jones pulled out of the main event and refused to do a makeup with Chael Sonnen, is nobody cares. That was one where there was a press conference, even ESPN was tuning in, and Dana White just buried John Jones and his coach Greg Jackson. He called them sports killers. They don't have the platform. They don't have the interest. It's a afternoon fight pass card from Ireland, so people aren't that upset, except in Dublin, and we'll get to it in a minute, but they've already had a series of screw-ups in Ireland this week. So just a bad week. I would stay out of Ireland is what I would do. Don't send Dana White over there. They've already shed on Poirier. Just leave it there. Forget about it. Move on.
How about you, Eugene?
When you say forget about it, are you implying that they should yank the card?
No. I'm saying they go with the card. They've sold the tickets. Put on the fights. Move on.
There is no need for them really to. I mean, if you look at Gustafsson and Daniel Cormier, you look at how much advertising. I mean, come on, hey. So it's not because people complain. So it's not like they put a lot of heft or might behind one of the major fights. I can't believe there's this much agita over a minor fight outside of market interest, and you referred to later. So I think I mean, the question is, how do you make lemonade out of very, very rotten lemons? And sometimes you just can't. Of course, you do realize that the death knell. This is the scene in Cuba where Michael Corleone grabs Fredo by the face and kisses him and says, "It was you, Fredo. I knew it was you. You broke my heart." Except the bald one is Michael Corleone, and Dustin Poirier is the baffled and confused Fredo. It's like, I can't believe you fucking did that. I mean, like I said, when we were talking about it on the Care or Don't Care preview, all of the extracurricular fight activities are much more interesting to the fight, and this is just another one. This is not actually the fight. This is the extracurricular to the fight, and the fact that Poirier would have had balls big enough to, I mean, I guess he doesn't know that he's Daniel Poirier, right? I guess he somehow woke
Dustin Poirier.
There you go.
Perfect example. You can't even get the name right. But here's the thing that's weird about that. You have a situation where
he woke up and forgot who he was, Come on.
Right. I mean, especially after the loss to McGregor, you have a situation in which he can kind of redeem himself and his brand, and which is what he was doing when he was winning when he changed weight class.
When you look at it, when you look at how close he was to achieving a certain amount of business victory, and by just taking that left turn to the door with the tiger, he just is completely mauled. He's like, I think if you want to talk about, that's a PR disaster. That is a PR disaster.
Well,
and it will not be fixed because you're Dustin Poirier.
And the UFC has a long memory, and they're going to remember this and hold it against him. Luke Thomas was on Twitter yesterday saying a fighter should never take a fight that has nothing in it for him. Like beating Norman Park, so what? Losing to Norman Park, major setback. However, I think ducking the fight, declining, and I don't think ducking is fair. I think Luke's got a point. A fighter shouldn't be forced to take a fight that doesn't advance his interests. However, doing a big solid for Joe Silva and Dana White in the UFC, that does advance his interests.
Well, yeah. You got to ask what Poirier's interest. Interest? What do you mean interest? Like, where does any one of us see Dustin Poirier doing anything significant in the next 2 years? And like I say, unless he's got a clock at home that runs backwards, what are we looking at?
Well, the other thing too is I think that the specter of all the cuts, like within the past week too, like you have this situation where you see guys who were promising talents, they do a solid, they lose, and that's counted against them. However, in this situation, fortune favors the bold. How often do you have, especially for Poirier, how often do you have an opportunity to headline an event in another country, a country where you're already known because I guess Conor, beat you, and so they're very familiar with him. So maybe if he loses, worst case scenario, like do they take pity on sympathy for him? It's really fascinating, the whole dynamic of saving a card versus alleged self-record interest.
Okay, let's look at it this way. See, he goes into the fight. He makes noises. Maybe he militates for a little bit more money. Maybe who knows? Maybe he goes into a fight and he ekes out a win. He ekes out a win. Starts complaining bitterly about this and that. Gets separated from the UFC as a winner. Right. Something else that we haven't talked about and that you got to factor in, that guys are looking at Josh Thompson. Strangely enough, they're going, Josh Thompson, if he had fought his last fight in the frickin' UFC, would have made $5 grand from the catastrophically, calamitously bad Reebok deal. he would have made $5 grand. Instead, he fought Bellator, and he made $50,000 just for wearing some gear into the cage. That's not the. I mean, at this point now, if you're doing, if you're doing some MMA math, I got 3 years. How many fights am I going to get in 3 years? If I get $50,000 for each of those fights, that's say 3 fights, 3 years. That's $150,000. I'm not getting that for UFC. How much is that UFC fucking name worth to me? These are questions.
Let's bookmark that for a little later because we have some, we're going to be dealing with that with another issue. But when you're talking about knowing the metrics, a person who you hated at first or you resented at first or weren't feeling at first, in the metaphysical sense, Eugene, Conor McGregor, you're the UFC. Conor McGregor offered to save the UFC Ireland card by replacing injured Joe Duffy. Quote, I'll take the gate. It's my gate anyway. A cool 7. Cash. End quote. You publicly ignore. But what do you do? You can ignore it publicly. They ignored it publicly. But what do you do privately given the my gate and a cool 7 comments?
Man, you can't do shit.
They could turn the lights off on his mansions that he's borrowing from Lorenzo.
Yeah, oh yeah, they could do that, but they can't at this point now. They, I mean, they've had a good run with Ronda because Ronda plays ball, and they've got a good run with Johnny Boney Joni because he's compromised. You got with if you don't think that the bald one is sitting around somewhere going, come on, Jose, because as good as Jose is, he's never going to be.
They're not that loud, Jim. You can settle down.
Huh? Okay.
They're not that loud.
All right, good. So as good as he's going to be, Jose Aldo is never going to be an ambassador. He doesn't have the. I mean, he's got the it factor, but the lack of English as a first language.
He doesn't even have the it factor in Brazil. The guy doesn't have the it factor.
Yeah, right. So he's not. And fighters will always break ranks. Let's charge over there, man, and then they can lure them off to the side with, hey, I got a shiny thing, and they go, I'll be right back, and then it's just Jose Aldo leading this charge for monthly salaries.
But Jose also, I think, showed something in terms of a lack of awareness. I don't know if it's intentionally sabotaging by, instead of just going with the punches with Conor, saying, oh, it's all a joke. When I saw him and the cameras were off, he's a totally different person. I read that, I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that was bad.
So anyway, I mean, I just had to make
unless he was trying to pimp the DC Rashad Evans, Johnny Boney Jones.
Aldo doesn't get it. He's and that's the admirable thing about him, and that's why he stands up to the UFC. But he does not have any concept of the business or fight promotion or anything. He's just a fighter. He sees things in a very straightforward way. Good guy, simple-hearted, open, honest guy, and
no, backhanded compliment. Simple, hearted.
Well, I don't want to say simple-minded because he's a smart guy, but he's naive, and he expects things to be as they, to
a meritocracy.
They are. Yeah, and to be.
And then also, I mean, the hard cold reality of it is at this point now, if you're in Vegas, I think it's pretty clear that McGregor has turned over the last card, and it's like he said it. It's my gate. He said it. 100 mil.
All right.
He said it. He said it. I'm the golden child. He said it. Does he believe it? Fuck yes, he believes it. Until a numbers say anything differently, he should believe it.
So what do you think, Nate? Do you think that is there anything behind do you agree with Eugene that the situation there's nothing he can do and
I don't even think it's a situation necessarily. I think it's just Conor talking smack. That's part of his brand. I don't think the UFC minds that. I don't think he hurt the card. They're used to fighters offering.
You're crazy. What about this kerfuffle over the jersey and his saying if you don't?
That's our next topic.
If you don't fix this Reebok by the end of the day, we're out.
So this is Eugene once again. Harmonic convergence of topics. So since you brought it up, Eugene, you're Reebok. You released a UFC Ireland T-shirt emblazoned with a map of Ireland, minus Northern Ireland, with the phrase, quote, show your UFC territorial allegiance, end quote. Conor McGregor's coach, John Kavanagh, who recently signed an exclusive deal with Reebok for his SBJ gym, blasted you for, quote, an incredibly insensitive, stupid, divisive idea, end quote. How do you make amends?
Oh, man. I mean, can we all around the table at this point now agree that this has been the road of the righteous, righteous,
self-righteous,
has been beset with all kinds of difficulties. This has been a cursed partnership from the beginning. I mean, you remember George H.W. Bush at one point. He did something. I mean, I hated him as a president, but he did something pretty interesting. And one of the things he had done that was interesting is at one point in a press conference, they asked him something about the Middle East. And Carter was improperly engaged in the Middle East, so but it made sense to ask him. And and it was a great moment, a true political moment, where HW just kind of goes, you know what? I'm not going to get involved with those people. I'm just not going to get involved with those people, And this is any kind of American company or concern. You got to hold your fire on anything, because you have people who have gripes that are going back 1,000 years. You just can't compete with that. You just put a fucking map up there. Maybe a dancing leprechaun, put the colors, or put a clover, something, a shillelagh, say happy Ireland thing, people, short people with red hair, and then you move on. That's what. That's a good thing. Good Lord. Hey, my Irish friends will back me up 100% on this.
Some of my best friends are Irish, says Eugene.
Me and Donald Trump. The Mexicans, they love me.
What about you, Nate? Not as it pertains to Mexicans loving you or Irish people.
The Reebok and Reebok T-shirt. It's Reebok screw up. I mean, I think pretty obviously some intern somewhere did a Google search for map of Ireland.
Right.
Didn't realize that the island of Ireland is cut into two jurisdictions. Part of it, the northern part, belonging to the United Kingdom. Just got the map of Ireland, didn't even realize what they were doing. That's the best explanation. Either that or Sean Finn got in there and is really trying to stir up some sectarian violence via the UFC, which seems unlikely. But so at this point, you apologize, you move on. You don't say anything else about it. You apologize in public, you apologize in private to the coach, and you move on.
And you give him a new Reebok kit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe even get Giblert to come out, and Giblert can help. Maybe
Giblert Melendez, a very forgiving guy.
Giblert. I mean, if it shows anything, it shows really an incredible lack of detail to the sensitivities. I mean, this is not super complicated. We're not talking about it. I guess we are talking about international politics, and it's interesting that the fight game touches on it. But at the same time, what's interesting is the response, and the response from the McGregor clan, the McGregor clan, is one that clearly indicates that it is their house. I mean, again, it's a kind of a muscle flexing, like his refusal to put on the jersey. That I think, is making the bald one nervous, as well it should. And then there was something, there was another article today. I get up, I'm sitting on the toilet at 6 a.m. reading this article about the kit. Somebody was upset with the kit, it was something connected to Rhonda, and then something with the kit that they were unhappy.
Well, there was a whole thing yesterday where MMA Junkie put out a report that it turned out not to be, or at least was denied by Reebok, claiming that Reebok only had in stock about 8 kits, and they were all the most popular fighter kits. And apparently there was a period, Reebok says it was a database error, where none of the obscure kits were available, but all your big-name kits, your Ronda Rouseys and Conor McGregor's, that stuff was online and available, Anthony Pettis, etc., Cain Velasquez, but your obscure fighters, your Norman Parks and Joseph Duffy's were not for sale. Yeah. And apparently it was just a wacky mix-up. If you were, sinister, paranoid, you'd say, if you have a PR disaster, put out some smoke that's got something. It was a great distraction from the Ireland screw-up because it gave them a story they could push back on, that they could correct. A couple of websites, including our own Bloody Elbow, had to do some editing and retract some of their stuff. And so, I don't know. It reeks of a very sloppy organization by Reebok. And when you look at the quality of their product, like the Chris Weidman shoes that came out the last week or so, this is just, who would buy this stuff?
What is the term of the contract? When does it expire?
I don't know. It's a multi-year contract, but I don't know the details, and I don't know what the outs are for either side. I don't know.
Yeah, because by this time in that contract cycle, we should see things smoothing and getting better, and the exact opposite is happening. It's like this drumbeat of failure. And I'm pretty agnostic on it. I don't wear Reebok, but if I had a pair, I probably would. I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. However, I think
almost all their problems have been quality control issues, whether it's the fighter name spellings, whether it's getting the wrong countries on fighters' jerseys, whether it's using nicknames instead of last names, or this Ireland fiasco. This is all matters of apparently interns or low-level people who don't have a lot of knowledge of the sport or knowledge of geography that are being allowed to make these mistakes and not given a safety net of good quality control. And
what it says is if MMA is not a priority for you, why should you be a priority for MMA? Because somebody signed a deal that said you were. Man, that guy. I like Hollywood, how Hollywood handles things. There was a hit movie, and I don't remember what the movie was at some point. And an executive said, "Man, if we had, just say Pulp Fiction." Said, "Man, if we only had Pulp Fiction." A pretty enterprising young assistant goes, we actually did have it. And you go, well, how do we lose it? Let's check the record. And they check the record, and they find out that some guy signed off, said movie got not a lot of potential, called the guy into his office, said, "Hey, I was going through the paperwork. I see you signed away Pulp Fiction." He goes, "Yeah, it just seemed episodic and strange, and I didn't see it." He goes, "Great, clear out your desk. You're off the lot now." If this was Hollywood, whoever put that deal together would be taking the cardboard box and stumbling to the car in the sun with tears in their eyes.
Somebody should get fired over the Reebok Ireland thing. That's an egregious thing, especially the bit about territorial allegiance in a country that's been riven by sectarian violence since its founding.
Yep.
Just a bad look.
Yeah, yep.
Speaking of bad looks, Eugene, you're the UFC.
Yes.
A report on your finances claims that you pay 16% of your total revenue to your fighters. A bloody elbow report. Must read. Major League Soccer pays 35%. MLB, NBA, and NFL pay at least 40%. How do you respond?
Oh, am I starting or is Nate starting?
I can start.
Okay, go ahead, Nate. Yeah.
Well, first off, the UFC's response to anything coming out of bloody elbow.
Actually, if you could briefly take 30 seconds and explain how this piece came to be, because I think journalistically this is a fucking tour de force.
Yes, and what John Nash did was he got a hold of the Standard & Poor reports and the Moody's Bank reports, which have been out there for a while and several people have had. These are analyses of the UFC's business and fundamentally their creditworthiness. These are reports that go out to bondholders and prospective bondholders. Nash also got a hold of Deutsche Bank reports, 2 of them, for 2007, 2013, I believe, that covered the UFC business in much more detail. These are very expensive reports, and this is the first time, to my knowledge, that a reporter has had their hands on the Deutsche Bank reports. And so he was able to put together the best picture of the UFC finances from 2004 to 2013. It's a 3-part series. So far, the first part's the only one out, and it covers revenue. And the thing is, a lot of
you people who are listening don't know, this is not only like MMA Journalist of the Year stuff, this is like fucking Pulitzer shit. He took these public pieces of a private company and built a picture that heretofore did not exist. In philosophy, they call it ex nihilo. From nothing, we drag something. This is major. Sorry.
Yes, it's big doings, and some of the the pushback that's getting that on the part about 16% of fighter revenue, which is just an estimate, 16% of revenue going to fighters. It's an estimate, but it's an estimate based off Lorenzo Fertitta's own estimate of how much is paid out to fighters by the UFC. The pushback has been, well, we don't know the expenses. And the thing is, when the talent is also the product, when you've got athletes or you've got performers like movie actors, musicians, they don't get a piece of the net. They get a piece of the gross because
Correct.
They're the draw. People are paying to see Conor McGregor. People are paying to see Ronda Rousey. People are not paying to see Joe Rogan. People are not paying to see Dana White. They're paying to see the talent. They're paying to see the fighters. So the fighters should get a cut off the top, like Jack Nicholson gets in Hollywood. He doesn't care about your expenses. He gets his cut off the top. And so compared to other sports, it's not a good look. Now, here's what the UFC is going to do. They're going to ignore this, and if they comment, they're going to say something like, "Bloody Elbow's not a real not a real journalistic enterprise. We ignore them." And that's, they'll attack the messenger.
Yeah.
And that's what they'll do.
That'll be a complete fail.
It will be a fail, and I think this is one of those situations. My old boss and mentor, Jack Martin, who most recently was the worldwide chair of Hill and Knowlton, he always pushed public affairs and public relations as the fifth chair at the table, that this is somebody you should have at your board meetings to talk about what you're doing. And the difference between public affairs and public relations is public relations tells you what are the optics on what you're already doing. How do you sell what you're already doing? Public affairs says, why don't you take a look on doing what you're doing a little better so you're not pissing so many people off, and so you're not fucking yourself with things, like defective ignitions, et cetera, like actually look into the process and fix this so that we can communicate and tell people. And I think this is a situation where the UFC is getting closer and closer. They're going to force the creation of a fighters union, which is going to be a big headache and something they're going to regret. So I think the more they can do to not just get spin out there, but actually get more money in the hands of the fighters, the better. Because the next two parts of this, when they start talking about the expenses and we reveal how much of the money is going to management of this company and how the debt is being handled, paints a very interesting picture that I don't think fighters and their management are going to be happy to read.
Yeah,
that's what we got to look for.
And I spent 2 miserable years of my life working at EPRI, which stands for the Electric Power Research Institute. But it was at an interesting time. I went from Defense Electronics Magazine to EPRI, and it was California was about to deregulate utilities. So the utilities were trying to do something the utilities were scrambling and trying to do stuff to forestall government intervention, right? I mean, this is not, they didn't want oversight. They wanted to show that they were responsible stewards so that they could continue to call their own shots. There's a flexion point, or inflection point where the UFC is at right now, where they need to get ahead of this, and I know based on the characters involved that they absolutely positively will not. And
this, the moment
all signs are there, man. They need to wake up and fucking smell large amounts of coffee,
Yeah, because you're dealing with lawsuits, you're dealing with bad publicity, you're dealing with threats of union organizing. It's all coming together. It's not a good moment. And the case study Eugene's referencing, only a couple years later, or months later, I think, you had Enron deliberately turning the power off of cities just to manipulate the market, and then getting caught laughing about it on tape. And at that point, a free reign for the utility companies was dead in the water once you've shit the bed like that. And the UFC needs to clean up their act before the smoking guns are out.
I see people on Quora, they were asking, hey, if the Nazis had satisfied themselves with just
Nazis.
The Nazis had satisfied themselves with taking over France, Eastern European nations, could they conceivably have without attacking Russia, without attacking the U.S., could they have conceivably made it, not maybe 1,000 years, but at least maybe 12 more than they did, and the answer, of course, is that they were on a wartime footing for a reason, and the economics were only solid because of their expansionism. I think
they were running a Ponzi scheme, essentially.
Essentially a Ponzi scheme, but the truism that you can't attack everybody, you can't attack everybody all the time, and this largely, that's, the UFC has to close down some fronts so they could effectively fight on others. And if I were them, I think the easiest front to close down right now is fighter shit. It was easy enough for them, like any company with more than 200 people, it was easy enough for them to extend health insurance to all the fighters. A lot. You could cause them to break ranks easily by giving these guys a monthly stipend, because it's all numbers. You could figure out, okay, how much is Dustin Poirier going to make in a 5-year period based on how often he's already fought, and considering that there'll be a percentage drop in how much he's going to fight given that he's older. You could actually figure out, these guys are not getting a lot. How much would you have to pay Dustin Poirier to keep him happy? All right, tell you what, Dustin, we'll give you $1,000 a month. That's your stipend. That's your per diem. That is or your per monetum, or whatever the Latin word is for month. deal with it. And, you know, that would cause enough ranks to be broken so that, you know, it takes a lot of wind out of Jose Aldo's sails, you know, but you can't fight everybody all the time. That's not going to work.
Speaking about wind out of sails and fighting people all the time, if you're this Nevada State Athletic Commission, the White House petition requesting lifting Nick Diaz's 5-year ban exceeded the $100,000 vote limit and received mainstream press and celebrity attention. How do you respond?
signature goal. That's all what it meant. Not you said dollar, but it's signatures.
I did?
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't you answer the question then? Save me for myself.
He's not a junior high school teacher. Oh, Mr. Wilcox, you're so smart. You answer the question.
The petition's great, and it shows that there's a lot of support from Nick Diaz and a lot of opposition to the way they handled that. However, it's not binding in any way, shape, or form. The White House has no legal power or constitutional power over the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and they're not mandated to do anything about it anyway. It just means that they're going to read the petition basically at that point once you reach the so it'll somewhere go through the White House bureaucracy. However, it is indicative of a PR disaster of their own making, and when you're appointed by politicians, you do need to pay some attention to what the public thinks about your actions. So I would take it more as a warning. I don't think they need to back down on the Nick Diaz thing. Well, I mean, I think they should back down on the Nick Diaz thing.
I'll let you have your say, but yeah, go ahead.
But I think they need to not do it again, mostly, is move forward and don't do it again, and there's nothing they can say. They have no PR arm. It's a state board. They can't even lobby. They can't do public relations. So they need to just keep their heads down, talk amongst themselves, figure out how they're going to address this, and it's going to go to court. So my play would be let the courts save us like they did on the Wanderlei Silva situation. We make a patently bad ruling, the courts throw it out, you revisit it, you move on.
What about you, Eugene?
Yeah, if you're a guy like me who's taken, I think I've dragged people into small claims court no fewer than 3 times, right? But you're going to drag somebody into small claims court, like one was over a real estate dealing, right? So not only did I sue the realtor on the other side and the woman who sold me the house, but I also sued the president and CEO of Cornish and Carey, who has to show up. You can't show up with legal representation. You have to show up. You know. So I actually successfully, and the limit is like $5,000. So how much do you think the mouthpiece for Cornish and Carey charges? And they can't show up anyway. So, you know, it's like they can't get out of it. They either have to settle that, they have to go through. And the reality of it is there's certain things that you can wait your way out of. This is not fucking one of them. Again, you can't fight. How many fronts can you fight on, you know? I mean, they've got Wiz Khalifa, you've got the celebrity front. You've got the governmental front. You've got the golden children of the UFC allied against it. You've got Joe Rogan. You've got even the jungle. You know, even the jungle wants Colonel Kurtz dead. You know, these guys are hoping that they can ride it out. They are not going to ride it out because every day that Nick Diaz wakes up, he goes, "Hey, I can't fight today. You know what? In fact, I can't fight tomorrow. In fact, I can't even fight this time next year." You know, so again, if they're smart to get ahead of this, they go, you know, we've listened to the public, you know, we've reconsidered our standing, and you know, caught up in the emotion of the moment, you know, we analyze it again and we figure it out based on what we've already done in the past. This is what would be a fair and equitable ruling. Except, you know what? They will never do this. Like if you've read Emperor Jones, who wrote Emperor Jones? Not Eugene O'Neill. I can't remember who wrote it. Paul Robeson was in Emperor Jones. You know, these banana republic dictators, they don't, you know, Batista was lying up until the very minute that he was fleeing. They never stage manage themselves well. They never fucking do it because they're entrenched, because they're panicked probably, you know. But they're gonna do the exact wrong. I mean, it's like when I used to listen to my parents argue.
Did you just compare the Nevada State Athletic Commission to Batista, the former
dictator?
Yes,
yes, I did. And you know, I would sit and listen to my mother and my stepfather argue, and I would think, when I'm like 8, 9 years old, I go, well, if they were smart right now, he would say, And then almost like he heard me say this, he would say the exact opposite and would inflame the situation even worse. And I go, if she were smart right now, she would say, and then she would say the exact opposite thing. It was like, it was a primer. It was a textbook primer on not getting from point A to point B in the most sensible, calm fashion ever.
There's somebody there. It's a curveball.
All right.
Mean.
Yes, sir.
You're Supergirl. Republican presidential hopeful Jeb Bush said, "You're pretty hot." Do you help his campaign by using your cold breath to freeze Donald Trump? Double win since you're an illegal alien. Or do you show Jeb Bush how hot you are by incinerating him with your heat vision?
Okay, hold on. I'm a simple man. I'm a simple man, so I'm going to have to say, did Jeb Bush recently have anything to do with Supergirl? Or is this just an analog for something else?
They actually made a statement about Supergirl, really the actress that plays Supergirl, and said that she was pretty hot out of the blue.
Jeb Bush said this?
Yep.
He's a oh man, here you go. Here's a prime example of another guy. Like I think he must be in cahoots with Reebok, because I don't know that I couldn't make a series of mistakes that regular, that large, that damaging if I tried. If I tried. What's amazing is that I've actually managed to make it to 53 years old without having had a continuing series of fuck-ups that were that damaging. You know, I guess he's trying to seem high energy by expressing, in actual fact, you know what? This doesn't do anything but skeeve people out. And I'm going back to Jimmy Carter saying he felt lust in his heart. You know, you don't really want to hear this from Dad, you know?
Is he in the Lost Battalion then, you think, Jeb Bush?
Oh, yes. Yes. He's
a general of the Lost Battalion at this point.
He is Lost Battalionized. And you know what? What's exciting for me is how many people in the Fourth Estate are playing along. You know, he's running willy-nilly around the sand dunes, and they're running willy-nilly around the sand dunes, and they think they're carrying a ball over through some imaginary goalpost, but they're just dudes running around in sand dunes, and they will never find their way back home. Never. There was a piece in the Atlantic today, a great piece in the Atlantic this morning, about why is he pulling from his brother's playbook when he should be pulling from his father's playbook? You know, I mean, they're not even saying, okay, distance yourself from the name. They said, okay, we know the name, exist within the name, but you're in the wrong area with the wrong name, you know. And you could tell this is a decision made by bean counters, because they're looking at, W's numbers are up since he's left office. His numbers are up because people aren't thinking about him, you know? If they do think about him, they think about the shitty paintings, and they go, oh, yeah, this is good. Oh, yeah, that movie with the Brolin kid, that was pretty funny. Yeah, he likes to drink. They're not thinking about him. When they think about him, and they think about fucking Middle East adventures that are still not over, a permanent state of war, nobody's happy about that.
No, and Jeb taking the bait on the 9/11 thing from Trump. Trump laid that out there, and Jeb bit on it and bit hard. The media there facilitated him in the debates, joined in. Well, you can't blame George Bush for 9/11. It's like, yes, you can. He was president. There's a long paper trail showing that he was warned and warned repeatedly about Osama bin Laden and ignored all the warnings. Whether or not he could have prevented 9/11 is a different matter, but we know he was warned and he didn't do jack shit. So reviving that discussion, which led to about 40 articles saying, oh, yes, as a matter of fact, George was responsible for 9/11, that was just awful for Bush. And now that he's out there, what's he doing, holding up his phone and doing right swipe, left swipe on Tinder? I mean, is he like, hey, ladies, be sure and hook me up on Facebook so I can right swipe you on Tinder? That's not what people want to see out of a middle-aged presidential candidate, I guarantee you. But we need to wrap it. That's our time for our show.
Hold on. No. But then he's
overtime.
I mean, we're in overtime. Then he zigs because he's trying to show how high energy he is. So he's trying to get sexy with the American public, and now he's going to have to zig to seek cover because people are going to go, we don't need another perv in chief, you know. So he's going to zig, and where is he going to zig to? Going to drag the wife out there, and the wife. For a section of the American public, now we're back to the reminder of the fact that he's actually married to a person that's part of the immigration problem in the parts of certain members of the insane right-wing fringe element in America because his wife is Mexican. You know, so if you don't think Donald Trump has played this like a fucking fine cello, you're crazy. If you do nothing for the next few years, presuming he doesn't end up president, but study what he's done, you'll have your hands full. It's really pretty masterful. Again,
a teachable moment.
Yeah, like I can't imagine that Bush could do any worse. I never thought that Trump would do any better. He really he's you know. He's playing these fools. I'm pitying the fools.
Indeed.
He's playing them like a fine instrument, you know.
All right, so I believe that's our show. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Subscribe to MMA Nation on iTunes for the audio-only version for the people who don't want to look at our ugly faces. Follow us on Twitter at KidNate. Hey, at Eugene S. Robinson, at Alexi Ald, AULD. Read me on BloodyElbow.com. Read Eugene on Aussie.com. Sometimes on Vice's Fightland. Read Alexi at AlexiAld.com.
There's a link on Knuckle Up on my Most Dangerous Prisoner in Brazil piece. You should go and read that piece. It's a good piece.
Aussie.com. And check out Alexi's author profile on Amazon.com. And we'll see you next week. Zane Simon will be back with the 6th round. They'll have a vivisection right on our heels for the UFC Dublin, what's left of it. Then Zane Simon will have the 6th round on Saturday. I'm taking the day off because that card is not worth it. And we'll be back next week with another installment if I did it. And we don't know what we'll be talking about yet because the mistakes have yet to be made. Adios, MMA.
And then Sunday, I'm competing on Sunday, so I will do a live Knuckle Up. I found out that the guy I'm competing against is just about to be a brown belt. So I will have a tale of woe Sunday night live because.
Is this the world title? The World Seniors?
No. This is the U.S. Open. So this is a tune-up for me. So
I see.
Just
the American title.
Yeah, so I'll be live with Knuckle Up on Sunday night. Hear my tale of woe. You know.
All right. Well, something to look forward to. So adios, MMA aficionados. We'll see you next time.
Later, man.